What's going on, everybody? This is Vintage Gaming Channel here, VGC for short, and today we're taking a dive into a little segment I'm going to call Retro Rewind, where we're rewinding a couple years, maybe a decade or two, depending on the title, but this time we're going back to take a look at Star Wars Battlefront. No, I'm not talking about the sequel for Xbox One or PS4, or the one before that. We're going all the way back to the original that came out on the PS2 and the original Xbox. We're taking a look at the original Xbox version here, which we are playing via original Xbox One, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But for those of you that don't know what Star Wars Battlefront is, it's more or less just a team-based battle game with a Star Wars theme to it, which is pulled off quite nicely if you ask me. You have a range of different classes and vehicles and even teams, which for a while this was the very first time a lot of us players got to play as the Empire or the CIS, or as most people know them as the Droid Army. And honestly, it was for the first time they pulled it off fantastically. I mean, the game itself is very simple, just capturing enemy command posts or eliminating the other enemy team completely. And for some of our younger players, that may be very primitive or extremely simple. But it may be simple, it is done extremely well with very small flaws, if any. With your different classes, if you're playing as the CIS, you get the Droideka as a special class, which is awesome, which their downfall is you can't operate any vehicles, which is understandable. And as the Empire, you get jump troopers, which are stormtroopers with jump jetpacks and shotguns, which are great. And as the time of the release of the original Battlefront, Star Wars Episode 3 was not out quite yet, so as far as the prequels, they only had Episode 1 and 2 to work with, and they pulled it off quite nicely. So with that being said, the Clone Trooper armor is Phase 1, which I don't have an issue with. It's personally my personal favorite version of the Clone Trooper armor. And my favorite thing about the original Battlefront is it is the only Battlefront game, aside from some PSP titles, that lets you have both land and air vehicles in the same map, which I think is phenomenal. It adds that extra option, and if your enemy team is utilizing them properly, it gives that extra challenge, if you ask me. You know, more or less just no holds barred, and anything can happen in these matches. So it's definitely one thing you never want to let your guard down. Now, as far as the multiplayer, I was not able to test out the online multiplayer for reasons, obviously. But the split screen is phenomenal, and even if you don't have anyone to play with, just doing the single player campaign or the instant action with bots is still a lot of fun to be had. So if you have a couple friends, or you just want to just turn your brain off for a little bit and just relax, have fun, Battlefront is definitely a great way to go. And like I say, it's extremely simple, so you'll really only have 3 game modes. Instant action, which is just like it sounds, you pick a map, pick a team, and jump right in. And you have your historical campaign, which spans, as I said before, the Star Wars Episode 1 and 2 of the prequels, but you also get the whole original trilogy too, which is fantastic in my opinion. And you also get Galactic Conquest, which I didn't do a lot of play in Galactic Conquest, but what I did play, I did enjoy. You pick your team and you more or less just take over the different planets in that solar system. As you take over these planets, you do have a few engagements and skirmishes with the other enemy team, but as you take over these planets, you get special bonuses, extra reinforcements, better AI, and even heroes. Now, you don't get to play as the heroes like you do in the upcoming Star Wars Battlefront 2. But the heroes in this one, they're not too bad as far as the AI goes, and they're extremely difficult to kill. I'm not going to say they're impossible. I've killed them a time or two, but they're definitely pretty difficult. And for those of you that aren't a huge fan of the third-person view, for those of you that didn't know, if you go into the options, there is a first-person mode option. And it's nothing overly amazing, but it's pretty good all things considered, because around this time most first-person view options didn't even show you the gun you were holding or anything like that, but this definitely includes that, and is kind of an added bonus only in the original Xbox version, is if you're in first-person mode and you get into a ship or a vehicle, you get the cockpit view, which for me personally, when I'm flying the clone trooper gunship, I can get a lot closer to the ground and fly a lot better. So that whenever I'm flying the gunship, that's always my preferred camera option. And as I said before, the game is simple, fun. I mean, you can't really go wrong, especially with the Star Wars theme to it. It's done extremely well. You have the original Star Wars soundtrack going with it. And as the maps, they're just iconic places you've always been before or seen in the movies. You get to go to Hoth, Tatooine, Yavin 4, and a bunch of other places. Way too many to name here. And they're done extremely well, and each different map has their own set of additional adversaries. Like, for example, if you are the Empire on Yavin 4, you also have to deal with the Ewoks on top of the Rebels. But if you're on Tatooine in the Dune Sea, not only do you have to deal with a Sarlacc pit that'll eat you if you get too close, but you also have the Tusken Raiders that are equal opportunity killers. They don't care if you're the Rebels or the Empire, or the droids or the clone troopers. They'll take anyone they can get. And there's been a couple times where I haven't really dealt with them, and they've more or less almost won the match, so you gotta be careful with some of these adversaries. And special maps have special vehicles, like Hoth, for example, is the only place you go where you get snow speeders and AT-ATs, which is awesome. And Cloud City is, if you're good enough, you can actually steal the Cloud Car aircraft, which is always fun. Definitely makes a nice addition to have these special, unique vehicles. And with that being said, just because you're the Empire doesn't mean you can't steal an X-Wing and use it against the enemy. As long as there's no one in that vehicle, there's no reason why you can't steal it. I mean, it's not easy. You can't just walk up to it and take it, you know. Every now and then you gotta do some sneaking around or just walk in guns blazing. All that's said and done, it may be simple, but it has almost no flaws. It does everything extremely well. Definitely a lot of fun to be had in this game. If you have not tried it, you owe it to yourself to give it a try. And as I said before, we are playing this through the original Xbox One. And as an added bonus, any of these Battlefront or Star Wars games you are playing on the Xbox One, Battlefront 1 and 2, for example, the DLC is now installed and included if you did not have the option to download it or try it in the past. So for Battlefront 1, you get the bonus map of Jabba's Palace, which is awesome. You can actually get dropped into the Rancor pit and get eaten by the Rancor if you're not careful. So it definitely brings some new additions to the game. If you've played it before, if you're looking for a reason to pop out your old Battlefront disc and throw it in your new Xbox One, it's definitely not a bad way to play it. And if you don't want to bother hunting down an original disc, you can always pay to download the game as well, which I highly recommend. However way you decide to play it, you have to play this game. This is VGC signing off. Thank you for watching, and feel free to leave a like and a comment. And if you have any ideas or any videos or games you'd like me to cover in the future, feel free to leave it in the comments.